All right, we'll get started. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ashwath. I work with Teach for India. I work with Teach for India's online teacher training platform called as Firki. I'm really excited to be your moderator for the day. We have a set of wonderful people here who are going to talk about their experiences in the last 3 months and what's the way ahead. I'm going to allow the panel to introduce themselves, but before we get started, we're actually going to get started with a poll. You'll see a poll on your screen right now, which has two questions. Just request you to go to the poll and quickly answer those two questions, and then we'll get started. Brajesh, we'll get started with you. Thank you. I see some responses coming in already. There are two questions as a poll. We'd love to hear from the audience first, the participants, before we get started with our panelists. We'll give it another 30 seconds. Another 10 seconds. All right, that's the results for us to see. We have a large set of teachers joining us today. We do have few school headmasters, administrators, teacher trainers, and others joining. I also included this question just to, I was curious to know what is the take different people have here. And maybe with this question, Brajesh, I'll get started with you. I'm going to request all the panelists to keep their responses brief. We have more than 350 people who've joined us, and we have a full 90 minutes packed session with a lot of questions and conversations. So Brajesh, with you starting off, if you could just quickly introduce yourself, what does Vartana do? And how has COVID-19 actually impacted your partner schools and organization in the last few months?
Sure. Hi, good evening, everybody. It's an honor to be here. Thrilled to be part of this panel. I represent Vartana, which is a finance company. We have been, for the last 7 years, working in the space of education financing. So we provide loans for students for domestic higher education, BSc, BCom, and all that. That's a small portfolio. But the biggest chunk of our portfolio, most of what we do is provide loans to schools for infrastructure development. So if you want to add classrooms, you want to build a new building, in a lab, a girls' toilet, separate, any of these things, we provide loans. And we've been doing this for the last 7 years. We are the market leaders in this segment. We have about a little over 4,000 schools across the country. And it's been a privilege. And as you can see, the destiny, the fate of Vartana, our organization, is completely intertwined with the fate of our school owners. So if the school owners prosper, we prosper, otherwise not. If I were to look back and look at the last 3 months, the lockdown was announced in the last week of March. But schools being so sensitive because the young children who study there, schools had been forced to shut down without too much of a notice, like 1 day, 2 day notice, even in the first week of March itself. Right. So what happened, what we saw was that a lot of schools got closed without any kind of a notice. And before the lockdown could officially be announced, these schools had started closing down. March generally is a very good month for us, both in terms of disbursements, loans being given out to customers, and also collections, the installments coming back. So March was a disaster. And the fees that were to be collected just before the final exams could not be collected. So the schools had to close the last year with a huge amount of money overdue, unpaid from parents. So when the moratorium was announced, the moratorium was that when the loan can be repaid at a later point in time. about 80% of our customers chose to take the moratorium. Now, this is disproportionately high because in other sectors, you see that about 50-55% of the people have taken moratorium. But here, since the fees got stuck and there was no time for the schools to react. So obviously, our installments collections for the month of April and May were also very, very bad. We had about like 20-25% collections happening. And it was a very, very tough time. So that was the first moratorium, which was announced for March, April, and May. And then the government announced a second moratorium, which was for the months of June, July, and August, which is still going on. And so that also coincided with the summer vacation period. And we kind of realized that if the schools do not engage with the parents and the students, it is going to be very, very difficult because there's no way that we can predict when the schools will get opened again, when will the pandemic go away. So we, over that 1 month period, in the month of May, we kind of created a platform where we brought in a lot of service providers, people who are providing online education. And we started aggressively reaching out to our schools saying that if you are interested to start online education for your parents, for your students, we would love to be of help to you. And very happy to say that about 1,400 of our customers subscribe to that thing. So that was one part. So the second moratorium, when we went back to the customers and said that you need to understand what are the implications of this moratorium. The interest meter is still running and doesn't make any sense for you to not pay. And a lot of our customers kind of saw the logic of that. So the collections have improved for the last 2 months, June and July. And I'm really very thankful that the schools have started doing the right thing. And that can happen only when the parents are doing the right thing, which is paying the schools and also. But it's been a very, very tough time. We've had to lay off people. We have had across the board salary cuts for our people. And I really hope and pray that this goes away. We're talking about schools, but the impact has a negative impact on the entire sector, right? Everybody gets impacted. So that's what I would say as my opening
remarks. Thank you so much for sharing that. With that, I'd like to move to you, Amit. If you can also quickly introduce yourself, share about Bharti Foundation, and particularly with the schools you all run, what has changed over the last 3 months? What are you all seeing as the need of teachers, right? And again, request you to keep your response brief.
Sure, I will do that. Okay, a quick intro about myself. I'm Amit, and I have got up a rich experience of 20 years in K-12 space. And in my last 20 years, I have got up an experience of handling up low-end schools, middle, and as well as high-end schools like Scindia schools, Birla Public School, Doha, and all. Prime responsibility was to give up a technology support. Recently, in fact, not recently, now has spent 2 years with Bharti Foundation, and I am now managing up the complete school operations in Bharti Foundation. So I manage 183 schools, which is an end-to-end management, and we are ensuring that things are going on. Difficult time, but things are still going on. So I'm sure others are already aware about Bharti Foundation because I can see lots of teachers from Bharti Foundation who have joined. But quick recap for others so that they are on the same page. Bharti Foundation is a philanthropic arm of Bharti Enterprises, and it has got up 2 flagship projects. One is a Satya Bharti school, where we are providing a free education to underprivileged students. So there are 40,000 kids who are getting up a free education, and we do not charge a single paisa from these students. So uniform, midday meal, even the quality education, whatever is being given in a metro schools, we are providing the same in a rural schools. The second project that we have is a quality support program where we have tied up with the government schools and we are providing up a consultation to the government schools so that they can also provide up a quality education. If we, whatever good learning we are having from our Satya Bharti school program, we are replicating the same learning in a quality support program. So these are the 2 key flagship projects of Bharti Foundation. And if I have to talk about what happened in last 3 years, we all are aware about it. The entire education model flipped. what was happening in a traditional mode and in a classroom, now it is happening through a virtual learning. But despite of the challenges that were there, and especially from a rural area that we all are handling, the scenario for us was very well managed by our teachers, because they created up a WhatsApp group to start with, and within a span of 3 days they started creating up a WhatsApp group and ensured that the learning is happening. So we have not halted ourselves, and there were good practices which actually helped them to do it, but the teachers took up a step and they started up creating up those WhatsApp groups so that the learning is happening. So a lot of transformation from what existed earlier. The mode of learning has changed and transformed drastically. So that's
Yeah.
what.
And if you could quickly comment on what do you think teachers need at this point of time from your observations?
So teacher needs a right mentoring, and they need a right identification of tools that can help them. So for example, you have variety of tools that exist today. You have Zoom as a tool, you have WhatsApp as a tool, you have Microsoft Team as a tool, you have Google Forms as a tool, then you have various assessment engine as a tool. What should be selected and when should be selected? And what is a right mode that would actually help up a teacher? So teacher need a right guidance in terms of first identification of a tool, and then giving them a right knowledge so that they can use it rightfully. They all are already a subject matter expert. They do not need any guidance with respect to the subject, but they need in this phase a right guidance in terms of selecting up a tool, changing up a methodology of a delivery, because earlier it was a instructor led methodology. Now it is a methodology which is a blended learning methodology.
Yeah. Thanks, Amit. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. Just a quick note to the panelists here. We'll get questions in the Q&A section, so feel free to open that, type your responses to it. Otherwise, we will answer some of those questions towards the end of this conversation. We have more than 600 people who have joined us here, and we're also streaming on Facebook in case you would like for your colleagues or peers to join. I'd like to now move on to Priyanka. Priyanka, we've heard on how schooling as a system is affected. We heard
Yeah.
from Amit on, what things teachers have started doing, even if they are small steps, like starting with WhatsApp and then finding other tools. If you could share about, just a quick introduction about yourself, B, about what CENTA does, but C, particularly, how do you see CENTA, helping teachers cope with this new reality?
Yeah. Thanks, Ashwath, and good evening, everyone. I'm really looking forward to this session and sharing my thoughts as Ashwath is saying on this interesting topic. So, I'm Priyanka, Chief Operating Officer with CENTA, and our mission is to make teaching aspirational. So, what we do is assess and certify the competencies of teachers, connect them to a range of opportunities, rewards, and recognition, and support their professional development. So, like everyone else who is in the sector currently, in this new reality, we're of course focusing on new skills which teachers need to learn to kind of continue their learning in the online environment. We're having upskilling programs, we're having certification for online teaching, etc. So on and so forth, like whatever everyone in the sector is trying. But the bigger point, Ashwath and everyone who is around, what we are thinking is that this new reality is an opportunity for teachers to show their competencies in a very visible manner. And I'll explain why do I say that is now that the teachers are much more visible to the parents, like teachers are there in your houses as parents. Many of the parents have started understanding how difficult the job of a teacher is. Many of them now understand it's not easy. And even if you give the same tech or the same lesson plan, the difference a competent teacher can make, it's so much more apparent, which probably was the case earlier also, but was not in your face. That has become very visible to the society on a larger level. A competent teacher is what we need. And in that sense, we think it's an opportunity for teacher to show their competencies, get the recognition which they deserve from their schools, from the parents, from the broader society. So that is how we at CENTA are looking at it. that we continue identifying outstanding teachers, competent teachers, getting them the right recognition and reward for their competencies.
Thanks, Priyanka. Definitely resonate with that point on, how empathy probably has multiplied 50 times when you're dealing with one child at home versus how teachers deal with 40 to 50 students every day in a classroom.
Yeah, right.
So thanks for sharing that. Sanjay, I'd like to move to you next. If you can also quickly introduce yourself, what TechLinks does, and particularly what is the role you see, TechLinks and other service providers like you can offer for schools through this for blended learning.
Sanjay, you are on mute. Sanjay, you are on mute.
Sanjay, yeah.
Sorry.
Thanks, Amit.
Thanks, Ashwath, and good evening, everyone. Looking forward to this conversation. I am Sanjay Dalmia. I am CEO of OpenLinks Foundation. We have a product TechLinks, and which is basically to help teachers to make the classes fun and relevant. And how we do that is by providing good resources to teachers to help them plan their classes and execute their classes well. So like Amit said, teachers know their concepts, they know the content, but what they need are possibly good activities, good worksheets, good discussion points, good videos. And there is a lot of thing which is available on open source. There is a big community there. There are some exciting practices which have been set by companies like Wikipedia, by Quora, by Stack Overflow. So we are trying to see, how we can build a community of teachers with very good content, with very exciting content. Teachers have very limited time. We are mindful of that. They don't for content. So how can we quickly reach the very exciting content, very good content to them so that they can prepare for their classes and go into the class with some great ideas which are available in open source. And why we are doing open? Because there are 62 boards in India, there are 17 languages, and this kind of work cannot be done by any one institution. And that's why we are trying to work with the community and build a community for this work. COVID has been unprecedented, so the way I would put it is that, on the technology side, the community, the education community, the school community was possibly going at the speed of snail pace, maybe 1 kilometer a day kind of pace. And suddenly after COVID, the requirements have jumped up and so many things are happening that we are possibly at a jet speed. It is very encouraging to see many teachers trying out many different things, learning different things. When I look at the work of Bharti Foundation, who have tried to implement and not just sending information to students, but getting it back from the students, assessing the work. So, of course, different places, things are happening at different levels and at different methods. But the speed at which the technology requirements are coming in, content requirements are coming in, we are trying to understand what can work and how to put it together and how to train the teachers. It's unbelievable, and I think it's a kind of a revolution that I see happening. Thanks, Ashok.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Definitely would like to explore the opportunities as you were talking about, or even Priyanka was mentioning. But I would also like for us to spend some time with the challenges. So I'll coming back to you, Amit, right? If you can just say what has been like the big barriers that you all have seen to learning, right? And what are the questions that teachers and parents have at this point of time?
Okay. So I have already updated you that Bharti Foundation is operating in a rural areas. Our schools are located in a village, and the biggest barrier that we have come across is a digital divide that exists in a rural area. So in metro, every kid would get up an access of smartphone, but the space where we are operating, not all students had access of smartphones. And that become up a biggest barrier for us because when we did up a survey, we initially started off with 30% of kids only getting up an access of smartphone. With our consistent efforts of our teachers, where they convinced the parents, relatives that the smartphone access need to be given, now we have reached up a stage where 75% of our students have a smartphone and are connected through WhatsApp classes. But still, there are 25% kids who do not have access of smartphone, and how do we reach them? We started up with a new concept of a phone shala, where we said the teacher would make up a small groups and would connect up with the students through a audio conferencing. They would refer up the books and give up activities to the student, as well as explain the concept over the phone. So that's how we handled the biggest barrier that was in our way. We have also used some more tools like TVs, channels which were getting broadcasted like Swayam Prabha. Then you have some fast track channels which are broadcasted. So we also started using them. In terms of questions that teachers and parents have, initially there were lots of questions from our teachers that how we will make up this shift, how we will adapt to this change. But surprisingly, they themselves have found up an answer for it. And I can share up a few things that initially when we used to roll out any technology initiatives prior to COVID, it was such a difficult thing to implement. There were few teachers who were able to implement it smoothly, but there were few teachers who were not at all acceptable to this change. But now with the scenario change, every teacher is getting comfortable. They are not asking for trainings and they are themselves exploring various tools. So if I would share one tool, there would be 10 other tools that would be suggested by a teacher that this can be also used. So that was a very healthy change that we have seen within our system itself in terms of a technology adaptation. And now we have reached up that stage where our teachers are conducting classes through Zoom, Microsoft Teams, as well as WhatsApp video conferencing. They are also using these tools to conduct up a virtual PTM. So just imagine if a rural area teacher conducting up a virtual PTM where all the parents are excited to attend up that virtual PTM and understand what actually child is doing, whether he is doing it correctly or not correctly, and then being a part of that learning experience that child is right now going through. So that's it from my side. Akshay, you're on mute. Ashwath, you're on mute.
Yeah, thanks, Amit. Rajesh, I would like for you to build off of that thing. We are seeing schools being shut down. We are seeing transitions to online teaching, certain shifts made by schools, right? If you could also spend some time saying what are the shifts you are seeing with your partner schools, and what do you see are the long-term implications to these, right? Schools being shut, online teaching. What do you see as the long-term narrative that's going to be forming here?
Yeah. So let me start with the motherhood statement first, and then I'll get into the details. That finally, the teachers have now become more open to embracing technology. This technology, all the solutions that we're talking about have existed for at least 10 years, if not more, right? But that whole mental block, finally it has gone away. That's one statement which is at a very high level, cannot be generalized, because me as a parent and me as a school partner, we've seen so many things right now. In my son's school, which is a fairly decent school here in Bangalore, they had to change the platform. So they started with one thing, and then within a month they realized that, you know, there's something better which is available. If I look at the schools that we work with within Vartana, particularly in the rural segment that you referred to, there are too many challenges. Bandwidth not being available at the parents' end, not having money, or having money to either decide whether to eat or to buy bandwidth, right? Devices. So all these challenges we are all aware of, and it's great that, you know, that spotlight So one laptop per child could be that moment where every student needs a device, not just a device, but also bandwidth and internet streaming and all of those things. So I'm pretty sure that people are going to rush in and try to solve the problem of hardware, which is going to be easier to solve. That said, let us just step back and look at what is happening. All the teachers, no matter how enthusiastic they have been, it's all of us are just doing jugaad, right? We're just trying to see what works and just trying to adapt so that this 1 year does not go waste for the students, right? That's great. I'm not taking away anything from that. But I think the chapters are still being written, right? It is going to take a long time before we kind of establish protocols on how to use EdTech. But the biggest thing that Corona has enabled is that the mindset has changed completely. And we can talk a little bit more about that. The challenges remain, the students in the city are very, very privileged. They've got multiple options. That's not so for students in the villages. It's going to take a really long time before we can say that the India problem has been resolved. But yeah, it's been a positive move in the right direction, I would say.
Thanks, Brajesh, for sharing that. Definitely resonate with the point on openness to technology. And given how everybody is experimenting, maybe it does feel like it's something like a jugaad, as you said. But thanks for also expanding on the challenges. Before I kind of move into what the opportunities are, I'm launching another quick poll to hear from our participants. There are two questions that are visible on your screen. One is, do you think online classes are effective? And do you think that teachers can motivate and inspire students through their online schooling? If you can just go to the poll, quickly share your responses. With that, we'll actually move to Priyanka next. We'll take another 20 seconds. Thank you everyone who've already responded. Just waiting for the rest. Another 10 seconds. So I think 4 months into the lockdown, we are seeing people are feeling largely positive about online classes being effective and teachers being able to motivate and inspire students. So I think this is quite an interesting transition, something which was also being discussed here, just the openness to online classes. With that, Priyanka, with even taking into context the responses from our participants, right? I'd like to for you to respond to two. Do you see this disruption to the schooling system as something is going to be permanent? Is actually going to change? We're going to look back 20, 30 years from and mark this point as how schools have changed. And if that's the case, you were also mentioning about the opportunity here. What do you see as the opportunity in general and for Center?
Ashwath, as we have seen from these polls, like it's 3 months into this, and it's not like situation overall has improved. It's still a nightmare, but see the positivity in the responses. It was not the case when we ran a similar survey in April. It was very much, we don't know what's this online, we don't know how will we engage students, we don't know about learning. And see, the 3 months have got us where. So net what I think is while the fully online teaching may not continue as the situation improves, because as Brajesh was also saying, there are gaps, there are challenges, there are constraints. So it's not like we'll just completely move to the fully online model next year or so. But I think a blended teaching learning model is what will continue. So everyone is realizing the benefits of online and they're realizing the benefits of offline, and they're also realizing the shortcomings of both the models. So I think a blended model leveraging the best of both worlds is what's here to stay. And that's what I'll say is our best bet as a society. I'd just like to share on the opportunities a very specific example. So I'm not saying that's what everyone is doing, but it's more about seeing opportunity in challenges. So few schools and teachers, what they're doing is they're leveraging their best teachers to provide classes to students who are not even part of their school, especially for senior grades. I have a good physics teacher. Let me see how can I reach out to other students who are not part of my school, because now I can. And so basically schools are exploring ways to see how they can leverage the capabilities which they always had to increase their reach. How do they kind of make it work for them? So many schools were upskilling and supporting their teachers to get certified even before the pandemic, because demonstrating your skills is good. It has just gained momentum because there's so much focus on teacher and his or her competency. And hence we at CENTA see that CENTA certification, which helps schools and teachers to demonstrate their excellence in a very objective, independent manner, is gaining much more traction as compared to what we were seeing in business as usual kind of thing. So, but more than specific opportunities like certification improving, etc., what is more pertinent and heartening for us is the impact it is having on a broader mission, making teaching aspirational. So when teachers and teaching are becoming focus of the society, there might be gaps, there might be challenges, there might be constraints, but there is focus. They are in limelight. People are talking about teachers, the struggles they are facing, etc. Because of the visibility, we are sure we will move in the right direction, and a broader mission of making teaching aspirational would get the right focus. So that's how we are looking at it at CENTA.
Thanks, Priyanka. That's fantastic. Definitely not just teaching aspirational, but seems like online teaching as well aspirational.
Teaching in any shape and form works for everyone, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Sanjay,
don't think anyone here is biased towards any one mode of teaching as long as it's teaching.
absolutely. Sanjay, I'd like to hear from you as well, right? On the same two questions. Like, do you see this disruption to be something which is going to transform schools as we know it? And what do you see are the opportunities here, both in general and for TechLinks?
See, I feel I'll take a step back. When I look at a traditional school, there are many processes which are running there, and they have been running there for several decades and possibly centuries, and they are settled. So very simple thing like the classroom where there are many students and the teacher is there, that's a neutral space. Now when teacher is sitting in their home and doing online classes, if you are looking at that situation where it is possible, so maybe it is a small one room flat, it's noisy, maybe the background there are clothes or something which is not comfortable for the teacher. So now the whole thing has been transformed from a classroom to a very different kind of a situation. There are many small processes, I mean, one would think of an assembly as a time when students come and get prepared for the class, so everyone reaches the class on time. Do we have equivalent of those? Do we, how do teachers now check notebooks? How do teachers give instructions? Bharti Foundation is doing an amazing job, trying to match all these, but now they have one class per day for each class, one subject. And how does one think of syllabus completion versus, how the way one is attempting? So the whole model is now very different. And while, many of us tech providers, many enterprises are trying to find a solution, and which is the great thing that we are trying to find a solution. We are still trying, we are trying very hard. Things are moving rapidly, but there will be a time by when we will be able to find a good solution, which is not just a jugaad, but which is a good solution to make things work well. And hopefully by then we will not have the COVID crisis, so we will have best of both the worlds. But the point is that we are trying to find a good solution, and it will take time. The adoption of any solution takes time. So even if the solution is good, it will take time to adopt. What are the good things, which I see? One, of course, teachers have shown amazing enterprise. I know many teachers who are working like, 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day, collecting content, learning about the technology, delivering, checking answers, making things happen so that the students are feeling good and not suffering. So like Priyanka said, like Amit said, there is an amazing effort put in by the teachers, and really, really very, very, highly inspirational actually. The other thing, which I see very positive is that we have been speaking of flip learning, self-learning for a long while. And now we see that in practice. We are actually sending videos, we are expecting children to work on their own and send something back, or, so maybe there are some of these things which are fundamental changes, acceptance to technology, flip learning, respect for teachers, which we had kind of almost forgotten about it, that teachers are busy, they are human, and they are working hard and trying to make it happen. So I feel these are some big positives that I see in this revolution. From a Tickling's perspective, we are learning a lot. I had not imagined this pace of change. We were never imagining. When I look at systems, I think of informational systems and I think of it seems like the acceptance is moving very rapidly, and we are ready for transactional systems in education system. So which is a very rapid movement, and we are learning a lot in the journey. And we hope the community will benefit as we learn from our providers and our partners.
Thanks, Sanjay. It's interesting to know both Priyanka and Sanjay seeing that this movement to blended learning might last even once schools resume operations, even if it's a year from now. But let's also hear from the participants on what your thoughts are. And here we are running just another poll, this time just one question. Most of you are teachers today who's joining us. Would you actually continue using self-learning or online learning tools once schools resume? Would like to hear from you. Take another 20 seconds. Another 10 seconds. I hope you can see the results. Almost 70% of those who've taken the poll say that they'll continue to use it. And Brajesh, I would like to come to you next, right? And maybe even there's a 3% here who said they don't have the means. Like given working with schools in urban areas and in rural areas particularly, sorry, I want to understand from you, what do you see as the role of EdTech, now with the schools? And you had mentioned particularly about the mindset piece playing an important role. Would like for you to elaborate that, both from what do you see are the mindsets that, Varthana as an organization or you see your partner schools need to shift to kind of embrace this change in schooling?
Absolutely. So let's start with the mindset question. So I was speaking to somebody and about the future of education and how things are going to change. And he said with a huge amount of confidence that the moment the virus goes away, things are going to come back to normal, right? We've been learning this way for the last 500 years, nothing is going to change. So I just started wondering what is so special about the last 500 years. So approximately 500 years ago, the first book was printed, right? The Bible. And since then, the learning has always happened through the books. The knowledge was kind of sealed in those books. And you needed to go to the schools to have access to those books, right? Now, what people are now realizing is that that paradigm has been broken, right? Today, anybody who's got a device and an internet connection has access to knowledge if he so desires, if she so desires. It is not about the data not being available, the information not being available. It's about curiosity. It is about the desire to learn, right? So it would not be wrong to say that the guy who's providing the best internet connection is the best teacher today, right? That's one thing which I hope that we will learn from this pandemic, is that the model has already been disrupted and it needs to be now embraced. So we will have this this whole journey towards embracing edtech, and edtech is nothing but using the software, the hardware, and breaking out of the class, because your class is only as good as the teacher need not necessarily be true, right? Is edtech going to replace schools? No chance, right? Because please remember that we have put schools in place for a different reason as well. It is a 15-year-old daycare program, right? It allows us to keep the children in a safe environment so that we can continue working, right? Both parents are working. There's no way that the children can stay at home. That's not going to happen, right? And then the third thing, when you talk about the holistic development of children and all that, it's impossible to have it in a virtual environment. Your interactions need to happen. So the schools are not going to go away, right? But the schools are going to get more efficient. The flipped classroom concept, where the teacher says that you come prepared with this particular chapter tomorrow, and I'm going to ask for a discussion, rather than saying that this is how it has to be learned, right? The national education policy, which has just been announced, they're talking about 3 languages, right? That's a great initiative. But they also, the intent is that you'll call in teachers from the neighboring states, and then you can somebody in Karnataka can benefit from, say, Telugu or Tamil and all that. That I don't think is going to happen in a physical world, but internet can clearly solve that problem, that some teacher from Chennai can take classes for Tamil for the students out here. So I think we're moving in the right direction, and it would be, you should not let this opportunity go waste. Let's not lose the opportunity that the pandemic is bringing us. We need to significantly change, and if that mental block has gone away from the teachers, I think you will not get another opportunity like this, hopefully.
Thanks, Brajesh, for sharing that. Because the possibility definitely is quite exciting, where I think even earlier it was mentioned, saying that a teacher need not just teach their students and kind of expand that reach itself. Amit, I'd like to hear from you next. It'll be great if you can add to this. You did speak about tech solutions, which you have seen your teachers already kind of taking an initiative. I think specifically what I would like to know is, how are parents responding? What do you see as the role of parents? How are teachers leveraging that? That's part 1. And part 2 is, how are you seeing peer-to-peer interaction play out? Like, what are things that teachers in your schools are doing so that the social nature of learning is also coming? Because that's constantly the question with the shift to online learning, right?
Sure. Okay. So before I take up these questions, I would like to add on what Brajesh was saying, because there is some context to it.
Sure.
See, EdTech is a tool. It is not a replacement for a teacher or a school itself. And I would quote here a principal with whom I have worked in past. He used to say, for me, technology is like a pen. Whenever I would like to make use of it, I would use it. Otherwise, I will keep it in my pocket itself. So that's what is the role of a technology. It is going to help you. And this tool is with a teacher. They can rightly use it the way that they would like to use it. If you know it to use it very nicely, then you would take up the maximum benefits of it. If you do not know how to make use of it, then you would not take up those benefits. So that's the context which I want to say. Now, coming on what our teachers are doing it, and from a technology perspective, I would just share the EdTech aspects that they are covering. So they are not only handing up a live classes, they are also creating up their own videos. So they would record up a video and share it with a student. With this, their personal touch of a teacher do exist. So whatever kid used to see in a school or in a classroom, that experience is still shown virtually. Then post that followed up, there are resources that exist now. So various apps like Khan Academy, then you have Diksha, then you have uh, recorded content created by a teacher itself. So those are getting shared with a student, and that is being accessed by a student in a self-paced learning mode. What Sanjay was also referring to it, now we see up a huge shift. What was a kid earlier? He was a passive learner. Now he is an active learner on this aspect. Once that is done, then teachers would have explored the ways of assessing up a student by putting up for the assignments, some kind of a test, so that they can check what actually kid has learned or not learned. Basis that, they would also definitely engage with a kid by giving up some additional activities for a kid. It could be a group-based activity, or it could be an activity to further strengthen that concept itself. So EdTech is playing lots of role, and it is not only in terms of online classes, but overall in this. Now, parents, if we look at it up initially, they have transformed. Earlier, they used to just visit our schools once in a month just to take up a status, what actually kid is going through. Now they are daily updated. We are using WhatsApp groups, so every day they see what teacher has given and what student has responded. If a student has not responded, then a response from a teacher goes to the parent that this thing is still not being done. So now they are more involved in the learning process. With the access of a technology, they can also see that the teachers are making lots of efforts. In fact, if you would go through the participants chat itself, lots of teachers are saying that they are spending 40 to 50% more time just to handle up this crisis situation. So they are spending lots of time, and those content are now being available to the parents also. So they are also sharing it with the students and helping up a kid to learn more. So I see up a huge shift. Now parents are more involved in the learning process itself.
Thanks, Amit. Thank you so much. Definitely, I think whether or not teachers are giving updates, the parents can see it on a daily basis how this child is spending their time at home and engaging with this. And completely resonate with the other point as well, where you see your teachers are creating some of these videos. So just seeing the face of their teacher or hearing that voice, that level of personalization helps with, for students to really engage with some of this content. With this, I actually want to go to my last poll as well from the participants, just building off of Amit's point. Have you guys ever made a video and shared it with your class? What was the response to that video? Right? And completely acknowledge the fact, Amit also spoke about it, it's not easy, it's taking far more time. You're personally tracking messages on WhatsApp, then updating, probably your other teachers and parents and following up. So there's a lot of time that goes in the personalization, which is there. So completely acknowledge that. Thank you for those of you who've shared. We'll request the rest as well. In another 20 seconds, we'll close this poll. Have you made a video and shared it in your class? And what was the response to that video? There's also an interesting conversation that's going on in the chat window where they're saying technology cannot substitute a teacher. I think just echoing some of the points of the panelists. I remember when I was teaching, I had come across this quote which says that technology will never replace teachers, but teachers who don't use technology will be replaced by those who do. Right? With that, I'll actually kind of move to Priyanka. With my next question, just quickly sharing the poll results here in terms of, have teachers tried making this content? How was the response? The split is quite interesting. I think many of us are still trying to figure it out. It's taking a lot more time. But Priyanka, I'd like to move to you with this piece here, right? I would like for us to zoom out. You have mentioned this point of, like now you can teach any student. In the same way, right, can anybody become a teacher then? Right? I know we've spoken largely around schooling, but if you have to zoom out and look at, teacher education and certification around that, how do you see even that system getting disruptive? Can anybody actually go get an online, for example, can I go online, get a certification and just start running my own classes? How do you see this change happen? Just would like to get your thoughts and
Yeah, so
predictions.
before I directly come to this question, Ashwath, the poll which you just conducting is really interesting because yesterday only we had a webinar, which is part of our usual Thursday webinar series, which was an augmented reality, where a teacher, a social studies teacher to boot, shared how teachers can create augmented reality based videos and make their class more engaging. And the interest from teachers in audience was honestly phenomenal. Everyone then wanted to know how can they create their own videos. So a math teacher was asking, what topic can I use for this? History teacher was asking, okay, can I depict a battle which happens in some ancient times using augmented reality? So it just increased that kind of discussion. It kind of made teachers think through things in terms of how they can increase the engagement levels in the students. And in that sense, it's not historically about whatever you know and how do you just teach or coach that to students. It's also about how do you make learning more relatable to them. And as long as you have that basic passion and interest to learn continuously and make your teaching more relatable to students, I think it's an open world in that sense. So EdTech, when we talk about like teacher development, like whether if I am a teacher, what am I learning? So can a non-teacher teach? It's all about what am I learning as a teacher? What is my own professional development? And in that sense, EdTech is not new. Like Firki has its own online modules and you have been having them for like much more than 3 months of COVID. Ticklinks has its own program. Centa has its own program. We have this wide network of partners who have their own programs. So availability of EdTech for teacher on a non-teacher is not the issue here. I think the point as Brajesh was talking about, Amit was talking about, Sanjay also mentioned is about that as they're teaching online, they are understanding that they can also learn online. So they're becoming more open to learning online, which is the fundamental change. And in that sense, what's happening now, it's an open world. I can teach anyone anywhere. Anyone can teach me from anywhere. Like all these webinars we are conducting, even take this example, this webinar which we are conducting, all 5 of us are not from the same place, the panelists. All the audience are from all over the place in India. And I also saw a few questions saying, can people as an outside India join in? And yes, they can. So what better example of learning from each other than this webinar itself? So now whatever webinars, etc., we are conducting, we're inviting guests from all over the world, which was not possible in a non-tech offline environment. And it's just awesome to see that I can help you learn from the best people who are available in the world. So that's how we look at EdTech and how even a person who is not teacher, say by profession or by qualification, can get those learnings, can get those skills and start teaching if that is what their passion is in.
Thanks, Priyanka. So, and just to quickly summarize that, good content, good technology, and good teachers will be available for everyone, is what I'm understanding as we go forward. Sanjay, would like for you to also share on this, but with a little different perspective. We've spoken largely about teachers, right? But teachers are also parents at home. We see a lot of people thinking about homeschooling, particularly for this year. Even if it means pulling back their children from schools for a year or two. What do you see is the role of technology here for that? How do you, what do you understand, what in your understanding, what do you think parents and children need at home for the learning to happen?
Sure. So I feel, for parents, if I look at it as a parent, I think one of the things which I would be keen on is there a plan? And I think that is one of the biggest challenges I see right now, that, there can be very limited plan because, of the very, very uncertain situation. And that is what is causing even more anxiety. Is there a plan and what is going to happen? But that is something, which will pass on its own over a period of time. Nothing much can be done about it. I think the other things which parents are very keen on is, how is the teacher-child interaction happening? So, I feel they are very curious to know, is my child speaking? Is my child being asked questions? And, how are things there? So that is another thing which parents are kind of trying to understand, they possibly are not getting so much into content. They are trying to understand overall, is my child involved or is my child not involved? From a child point of view, I feel, they are looking at more how to engage, and if teachers are able to give them project work, some activities, and which are somehow fun, definitely they feel engaged. So that's how I would look at it. I feel I would add one more thing about the teacher aspect. I feel the traditional schooling system, and while we can pass give good information on internet and on online schooling, I feel for creating motivation, for creating inspiration, for creating confidence within the children, for that we need the traditional school. You need to be in front of the students. For me personally, I feel more comfortable when I am in meetings with people face to face than when I am doing it even on Skype, and on Skype or on Zoom. When I am seeing someone, I feel little more comfortable, but nothing like doing it face to face. So I believe there is a big merit in the traditional schooling system. There are things with which teachers can do and do, which cannot be substituted in this current medium. And yeah, so together, as we get out of this situation, it should, be seeing a much stronger system. So that's the way I look at it.
Thanks, Sanjay. Brajesh, I would like to come to you. Would like to actually move to the final part of this webinar before we open it up for Q&A. Just what's the way forward? I know Sanjay spoke about parents at the first part of this his response, but Rajesh would like to hear from you on, as a parent, what do you see as your role towards, the learning that's happening? And secondly, how does the next 6 months look for Vartana? Like, what's the way forward as you see it?
Can I slightly generalize the question a little bit? The role of the parents, not necessarily in the learning, but in terms of the interaction and the engagement with the schools, right? Is that okay?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, and the reason why I want to talk about this is that it is so sad to see that school owners, the management and parents often are at loggerheads with each other, right? Despite the fact that somebody's most precious asset, the child, is being entrusted with the school for years together, right? And there is, I think, fault at both ends that needs to be addressed. So quickly to give you examples, the school owners, there are schools who are insisting on uniforms. Why do you want to load the parents with uniforms when the schools are not functioning, right? Transportation, I can still understand that there could be obligations for the installment being paid, etc., etc. There could be fixed commitments, but school owners can step back and kind of try to appreciate that a lot of parents would have lost their jobs. They would be under financial challenges, difficulties, and they need some kind of a way out. Parents, on the other hand, are also being unreasonable, right? There's this kind of like that outrage that, oh, now I have to buy a laptop, or now I have to buy a device for my child. What is the school doing, right? The politicians, the first thing, the knee-jerk reaction would be, don't pay the fees. What is this, boss? I mean, we have people who, no matter how much challenged they are in terms of financial resources, have donated to the Prime Minister's We Care Fund. They have donated very, very generously to all the local activities for the langar or the food which is being prepared and all that. So many people have risen, right? Why are you looking at a school as your enemy? I mean, you need to support the schools. The teachers are entitled to the salary, right? Your, like it or not, your child's future is linked to how the school interacts with you. So it is very, very sad um, that this kind of and I think fault is at both sides. This needs to be addressed. Um, Even people who come from very well-off backgrounds are fighting for, like, why are you increasing the fees, or why do you want to pay? And all this, we need a little bit of maturity. We need to look at this with a little bit of a long-term view. Uh, yeah, so that was one part. How is this going to impact Vartana? Um, as I said in my opening remarks, business has come to a complete standstill. Right? There are no schools that are taking loans because they don't see any need for adding additional infrastructure. Right? Uh, I I fear that this is going to continue for another few months, if not for the whole year. Right? Uh, Finally, how things will play out over the next 6 months or next 1 to 2 years is going to be a function of how quickly the economy comes back, the herd immunity or the virus. Because look, there are certain trends which are happening. The kids who are moving from government schools to private schools. There's also a significant migration from rural centers to urban centers, and these two phenomena have been in force for a long time. Now, this suddenly the reverse migration is going to take time before things come back to normal. And my sense is that the demand for additional infrastructure is going to take some time before it starts coming back to normal. As of now, we are trying to maintain enough liquidity so that we can weather through these next few months. We're very worried about our existing customers. So if they want a top-up loan for working capital, for paying salaries, doing some small renovation work so that they're ready for the students to come back and all that, we're more than happy to support them, right? But the next few months, next couple of quarters are going to be choppy, right? And we have to face that. We have to confront that and try to see how we can make the best of this situation. What we're doing, as probably, it's a unique case for a finance company, is that we are actively promoting a couple of things. Like, one is, how do you engage in an online manner with your parents and the students, etc. It is not yet done perfectly. Again, it's something that we're learning on a daily basis. We're also creating platforms for online fee collection, right? So the parents don't need to come and expose themselves to additional risk. So all of those things, whichever way we can support them, based on the infrastructure that we already have at the organization, we're trying to support them. For the long run, things are going to come back to normal, and we want to be solidly by the side of our schools, so that when things come back to normal, they should feel that, yes, there was somebody who was there with them to support them through these difficult times. And I feel very, very privileged to be in this kind of a situation where we're working so closely with schools.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think I hope also that things start to turn around, for your partner schools as well in the coming few months. But there's an interesting point, I think, from what you shared, which I would like for even the other panelists to comment along with their closing remarks, is we know that education is a fundamental right. And today, with education moving or kind of being online as the only way, the digital divide becomes a very important conversation, and everybody has a role, to support or reduce this digital divide, just like we have supported, other initiatives which are there. So definitely would like for you guys to also comment on that. But Amit, if you can go next and just your closing thoughts, what is the way forward for Bharti Foundation? How does the next 6 months look? How are you guys looking at the digital divide and trying to address that? Amit on you, yeah.
Yeah. So Bharti Foundation has done lots of work with the teacher. So wherever we have reached right now, and if you look at it, the setup that we are in, we have made up a decent progress that online education is still continued in a rural area. Now for this, it is not an effort only from our teachers, but an organizational effort at our TNC team, which is an academic team, who gives up a direction to us. Along with that, there are field staff who are deployed at our field location, which is a cluster coordinator, district coordinator, the principals, the head teachers who are deployed, they have played up an important role in this entire change and the shift. And for this, we have done up a numerous trainings at within a Bharti Foundation. So trainings happened at various levels, and the entire information was passed on to the teachers so that they can effectively handle it. Now, whatever progress that we have made, it's a good progress that we have made, because now we can see more participation from our students, not only within our schools, but at a national levels. They are representing on a forums like CIA. They are also participating and taking up awards at UNESCO level. So, which is a huge change which has happened within a Bharati Foundation itself. We would like to sustain that. So if this thing is continued for 6 more months, we would like to sustain with this and build on the momentum that we have achieved. So today, if we have got so many students using WhatsApp, then we would like to further improve it. And there are ways that we have internally explored how we can promote and how we can get up a better of it. So we would continue to sustain it and further increase the momentum on this. If I'm sure about it that after 6 months or after 4 months, there would be announcement, or probably after 2 months also, there could be an announcement for opening up a school. So we have already started working on those guidelines, and we have created up a school reopening guidelines, which has got up every detail of it, that what is to be done if a student arrives in a school, what would be the entry point, how he would interact, how many students would be there in a classroom. And all of that is getting percolated at our teacher level, at a principal level, so that everyone is aware about those shifts that we will have to make. And we are ensuring that the ideas are not only discussed, but also the users are given an opportunity to respond back and say what are the challenges that would be faced. So they are able to express, and we are consolidating all of this and strengthening this reopening school document so that it is more comprehensive, and when any opportunity comes, we are ready to implement it. So that's what I look, that within a span of 6 months, one is a short-term perspective, another is a long-term perspective if the school reopens. That's it from my side. Yeah.
Thanks, Amit. Thanks for sharing that. We have the new education policy also that's out. I'm not sure, it's just come out recently, so not sure if everybody's got the time to go through it. But if you just see the highlights, Priyanka, definitely there are significant changes that's happening to schooling, the way subjects play out as well. Do you see that this is going to also affect change in how teacher education, degrees such as B.Ed, D.Ed kind of get rolled out? How do you see those? What do you think are the changes there? And also, if you can share about what is it that in the next 6 months Centa is doing that a lot of teachers we have today here, they can actually spend their time and leverage these opportunities.
Yeah. So, Ashwath, I would start from saying that what Prajesh shared, and like it's a very sobering thought, the kind of challenges which schools are facing. It's very real, it's very now. And it's a sobering thought, the digital divide, which is being talked about in the chat, which Amit talked about because of their presence in rural India. I think those are challenges. And there is no running away from them in some sense. We just have to basically make do with what we have right now, and what we have are our teachers, their passion and their ability to learn, and just move on. So in that sense, I would just like to reiterate that there is focus on teachers, which is good. And they need to kind of seize this opportunity to really ensure that things work in their favor in the long run. Parents in society understand the value which they add. And it's not simply one way, as Brajesh was talking about, it's mutual. So when they expect something from parents, then they also need to add value. And the adding value is not just about getting trained. And NEP also talks about it quite a lot. It's not just about getting trained. It's about what competencies do I have? What am I learning in whatever programs we are talking about? Like at Center also, we have launched a postgraduate certificate program. and it's with MAGE, a Manipal Group entity, which will give a certificate from CENTA as well as from Manipal Academy of Higher Education. So we're also launching these programs. It would have online lectures, it would have practicals in various schools, so on and so forth. But that's not the point. The point is focus is not only on trainings, focus is on the competencies I learn. Whether I learn it through these programs, which the entities like me or Firki or Ticklix, etc. are having, or whether it's just that I have learned things on my own and I have the competency. What is important is having the competency. You need training, get trained. You don't need training, you are a self-learner, or you're just by God's grace born as a teacher, perfectly fine. Training is just a way to get you the competency. That's not the end. That's just the means. So in that sense, what CENTA is looking forward to is not providing just a set of trainings. That obviously we do because we want to support the teachers who are looking for professional development. What we are focusing on is competencies. What we want to do is certify teachers, continue certifying teachers for the competencies they demonstrate. Whether they've learned from us, from anywhere else, they haven't learned, they are God gifted, perfectly fine. You demonstrate the competencies and we want to reward and recognize you for the competencies you have. So that is what we want to continue doing, whether the pandemic is there or it gets over in short term or long term. So that's what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Priyanka. Again, it's just a reminder to teachers as you're figuring out practices to engage with students, to invest parents. This is also an opportunity for you all to master your competencies, as Priyanka is sharing. There are opportunities online to further deep dive into certain skill set, get recognized for that practice, and hopefully as we move forward, more opportunities kind of open up as a result of this mastery. And lastly, Sanjay, to you, right? Your closing remarks, particularly when you're, again, in the context of the new education policy, do you think that there's an opportunity for EdTech services, even particularly for Ticklix here to leverage? If so, what do you see happening in the next 6 months? Sanjay, you're on mute.
I see that the government is putting in a lot of effort on technology. They have come up with various methods of trying to propagate content via Swayam, Diksha, ePathshala, etc. And right now they may not be there, but at least very clearly that's a direction. It has also set expectations amongst teachers in not just the big states like Maharashtra or Delhi, but even in remote areas, the Vidyadan channel, which has been launched by government, teachers are contributing to it, which is a good thing. We are, continuing on Ticklix. We believe that, the content should be very high quality and easily found by teachers. And one way of doing it is by getting community involved in refining the content and enriching the content. So I am very excited about some projects that we are working along with Bharti Foundation in Assam and Meghalaya. We are trying to kind of build these community practices in these locations along with government teachers. And what we want to do over a period of time, we want to build the community to be able to put together content, to refine content and organize it so that it is with very high quality. So we'll continue to do that. I think the NEP is very sure that they want to support such digital platforms. And I think, it should be good. It should be good with the new NEP and the changes that will happen when schools reopen, with so much good that would have happened during this lockdown, the new things that would have learned. So a lot of unlearning and learning which is happening, I'm sure will do us good.
Thanks, Sanjay. I'd like to actually now shift to the Q&A part of it. But before we do that, would just request the panelists, if you can go to the chat window, and if you can either provide details of a contact detail so that some of the participants can reach out to you, or the details of your website where they can learn about more about what you all are doing and how they can, leverage these services. I know, Amit, you had mentioned about how you'll have figured out what does that back to school system looks like. If say some teachers or school administrators here would like to kind of refer to that, whom can they contact? Priyanka, you have spoken about, conducting webinars on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, plus giving certification opportunities for teachers. If they're interested, where should they go, whom they can contact? Sanjay, you have, your Ticklings has a whole set of resources for students arranged as per grade, subject, which teachers can assign, monitor. Whom should they reach out to know more about it, get a product demo? It'll be great if you can just share your contact information or your website so that the participants here can kind of reach out to you, because we have more than 50 questions and we will not be able to cover it in the next 15 minutes. And that's the reason why I just requested you all to share your contact details so that in case we are not covering some of these questions, they can reach out to you. Before I start off with the Q&A, Brajesh, Amit, do you have any overall comments on the new education policy? Would you like to share thoughts, or should we move ahead with the Q&A? Okay, great. Okay, we've got a bunch of questions here, and I'm going to actually open these questions out to panelists and not really specify it to anyone. So feel free to just unmute yourself and kind of share about this, right? So one of the questions we have is that the shift to digital platforms for learning was too sudden. We all agreed that earlier there were opportunity, but we didn't really leverage, but the current times have really pushed us, and it's an unwilling shift, but it's a shift nevertheless. What are some of the steps to be taken by teachers to ensure that students are actually learning and not just engaging with digital content? Yes, there are live classes, there are live webinars, but what's the depth of learning? How do we ensure steps are taken in that direction? Open for anybody to respond to this.
So, Ashwath, what I would say here is the challenges of learning versus just teaching were there earlier also. It's not like, honestly speaking, that everything was hunky dory in the usual or the traditional world. The inability of teachers to pay attention to each individual kid in the classroom was there even in physical environment. And some of those challenges are probably getting exaggerated in online manner, but some of the challenges are also getting addressed because of the technology. So I think we shouldn't just always keep on comparing how the previous things were vis-a-vis what they are now. We should just see whatever we have, how do we leverage that in the best possible manner. Just keep our mind open to address the challenges in the best possible manner is what I would say. The previous world wasn't perfect, the current world is not perfect. We should just do the best we can as a group.
Thanks, Priyanka. Brajesh, Amit, in the starting of this conversation, you all spoke about how there were few digital tools, some of your partner schools or the schools you're operating with have moved to. One of the questions is, can we know what these digital tools are? Like, what are those simple, cost-effective solutions which are there for, schools here who are joining us today to adopt from your experience?
Okay. So in Bharti Foundation, we have taken primarily the free educational resources, and our teachers are using Ticklinks for referring the lesson plans and activities. Using those, they create up content which can be used by the students. Along with that, they are using apps like Diksha, Khan Academy, and tools like YouTube. We also ensure that teachers are provided with a identified YouTube links. So some of this content is already provided to the teacher, and then we expect the teacher to further explore and identify those resources. There is one more content which we have recently tied up with Visit TikTok, which can be definitely used for maths and science. And I'm sure all the teachers would find it very useful. You can just go to a YouTube and type in TikTok YouTube channel. In terms of apps that can engage children, you can try out Hello English. this app actually helps up a student to improve English skills and is very effective. Google Bolo is other platform which can be explored. So there are lots of things which can be explored and tried. I have just named those which our teachers within our systems are using.
In addition, I would say, we've been using Pratham. That's good. This Khan Academy. There are a lot of these upper end solutions which opened up their systems for the COVID period. Topper, TOPPR, great content. Vedantu was free for a while. I am not sure about Byju's. So these are available, but then for us, the whole thing was that, the platform has to be used first by the teacher, and then the teacher first, then subsequently communicates to the students. There, the best channel that we saw was WhatsApp. You take the content from whatever partners you have. The delivery, the last mile happens through WhatsApp. There are very few schools which say that, okay, we can do online, which is based on a laptop, right? So we have to look at both of these things, the content as well as the delivery channel.
Thanks. Thank you. Amit, do you want to add to that?
No,
Okay. Thank you both of you for sharing some examples. Hope that's helpful for people who've posted that question. There's a next small set of questions which is around the evaluation. Like, how do we assess? What do we assess? I know it's a little zoomed out questions. The comments are that largely we can only look at multiple choice, objective. How do we look at subjective responses? So it will be great to get few thoughts on what do we assess and how do we assess with online learning.
So, Ashwath, if I can answer this one. So it's not in the context of students, but I'm sure the learnings can be extended because we do lots of assessments for teachers. And while we do lots of assessments which are multiple choice based, we have micro credentials or certification, which also focus on, say, video of a teacher or focuses on the lesson plan which they submit, which are very similar to the kind of questions that you ask, that if a student is writing a descriptive answer, how do we evaluate it? So what we do in these cases is that we define a rubric based on what competencies we are or skills we are expecting the teacher to demonstrate, and teachers can do the same thing for students. Like from a particular question, when you are asking a descriptive question, what are the competencies or skills you are expecting the student to demonstrate? And then define a rubric basis those competencies. That if a student answers this kind of a thing, I'll score 1. If a student answers this kind of a thing, I'll score 2. Have good sample examples for all the rubric categories and then try to evaluate using that. That's how we look at it for teachers, and I'm sure that learning can be extrapolated in this context.
Thanks.
Okay, Ashwath, I would like to add on.
Yeah, please.
So from an assessment point of thing, I think the biggest challenge that our teachers are facing, how do we assess whether the child is learning or not? So I would share two approaches on this part. And one would be Jugaad, what Brajesh has already defined, because teachers definitely are finding out a different ways, easy to implement. So our teachers are putting up a question in a WhatsApp group itself, and students are expected to write down the descriptive answer on a notebook. Once done, they would just scan it or click up a photograph and post it within a group. The moment it is happening, teacher would open it up and put up a remark whether it is correct or not, or changes need to be done. Similarly, the peer learning is also happening. The other students are also learning what was the response, were there any mistake or not. So that's a jugaad way of handling it. The more refined way of putting it across is you can create up a Google form. Once you create up a Google form, put down up a descriptive question, and you would get up an entire response within a form itself. And then teacher can go through that response and give up a comment to that particular student itself. So this is how you can handle up a descriptive questions. Multiple choice questions, you have apps like Testmos, and you can also create through Google Form quizzes also, which is an objective way of assessing up students. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, both of you. Brijesh, there's a question, Patia, specifically for you. This is from Janaki Govindan, and she's asking, how can the gap between rural school students and urban students be bridged? How can rural students utilize this opportunity as much as urban kids? Uh, and maybe you can also share from saying, what do you expect in an ideal scenario that systems change? Let it be from government policy, political will, maybe the funding, the support. Like, how do you see this as an opportunity for rural students to also bridge along with the urban students?
Yeah, very difficult question. The problem is also wicked. It is going to be naive to say that, yeah, this can happen immediately. But if you look at the bright side, this is probably the best opportunity, right? Today, as Priyanka was mentioning, that it is not constrained by the teacher, right? It is now your desire whether you want to take classes, or you want to learn from somebody who's sitting in a city within the country, within the same state, or somewhere else as well, right? So this, I think, could be the biggest leveler, if you ask me. And this is exactly the democratization which is happening, that it is not a privilege that you have access to a textbook only in a particular building, right? Again, so that's theoretical, but the way it is going to play out is going to be difficult. It is going to be very tough. Government policies, I think the NEP is moving in the right direction. I've just seen those slides, so it's not explicit as to its approach, but I think it clearly acknowledges the fact that there is more to learn than from just the textbook. And I think we should be embracing the liberal arts approach. And it's amazing to see that they're breaking down the barriers between science and commerce and stuff like that. There should be some foundation courses. Then there should be those. And see, no child wants to learn. Everybody wants to play, but every child wants to solve a problem, right? So the whole approach of solving problems, interdisciplinary learnings, where you learn from this and then you apply elsewhere. These are the skills. And the third could be about ethics, governance, etc. So I think we're moving in the right direction, but it's going to take a lot of time. Janki, I wish I had a silver bullet, but nobody has it, right? That's why all of us are trying different things. Nothing seems to be working completely, but the ones that don't work at all get dropped off, and we just have to just keep moving along. Right? And we've come a long way. It's not that we've not made any progress. So if you look at where we were last 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it's going to be slow, right?
Thanks, Brajesh, for sharing that. I think with that, we'd like to actually conclude this evening of conversation. There's still a bunch of questions there which are unanswered. So I've requested the panelists to put in their contact information or their website so that you can follow up with this. But any closing thoughts, like how was it for you guys for being part of this conversation? While you're sharing this, I'm going to request the participants to go to the chat window, share your closing thoughts, takeaways, feedback, learning that you have for us. And would love to get any closing thoughts from you panelists on how was this conversation? What are you walking away with, especially when you're looking at the polls and the chat window?
I think polls show, to my mind, or at least the takeaway for me, is optimism. It's careful. It's not like euphoria, but there is optimism. Teachers are learning. They are growing. They're happy to learn. They're seeing the benefits of it. There are challenges and there are things which you feel weird about, bad about, digital access, or the other challenges, the increased workload on teachers, interference from parents, so on and so forth. But the overall look is, yeah, we have to manage. So we will manage. So which is what I think is good. That's what I would say my takeaways.
Thanks, Priyanka.
For me, I feel that this change that we are going through is I keep calling it a revolution. I think we are going through a revolution. It is amazing when I hear stories from Brajesh, from Priyanka, from Amit, the kind of things that are being tried out at the government level, at the organization level, at the school level, at teacher level, at parent level, at student level. So there is a big involvement of various stakeholders to address this very unfortunate and exceptional situation that we are in. And I feel we will come out of it stronger than before, so it is not like online education versus school education. The two will come along stronger and together, and we will see a much better system as a whole.
Thanks, Sanjay. Amit, Brajesh, quickly your closing thoughts as well.
I would just, I was thrilled to see that the maximum number of people on this call are teachers. I mean, the teachers, I mean, the national education policy, whatever we want to do, it all converges on the teachers. And it's so exciting to see that the teachers are getting involved in these broader conversations, looking at what is happening, not just inside the classroom, but at a slightly, macro level. It's a very, very positive sign. And if we want to improve the quality of education in this country, and we need to, right? There are no two views about that. I think it all depends on the teachers and how they apply themselves and how we can support the teachers. So we're very, very happy to be part of this conversation. I hope they found these views to be, thought-provoking, and full steam ahead.
Thanks, Brajesh. Amit?
So thank you for this opportunity. And the moment I looked at the numbers, 600 people, in fact, 700 plus people connected on this forum is a great experience. And takeaway for me is the kind of a confidence that now I have seen within this teaching community itself. It's a huge shift. Whatever was existing earlier, and Priyanka also mentioned in her talk that initially people were not so confident about this online learning. Now, the things have really changed, and teachers have explored a lot. Now they are in a driving seat of ensuring that the kids are learning. So that's a huge change that we have seen. And personally, the remarks that I am going through, that change is very much evident. So the biggest takeaway with me is the shift that I'm able to observe right now in the teaching community itself.
Thanks, Amit. Thanks for sharing that. I'd like to just close it out. I think completely resonate with it. I resonate with this being a sentiment of a revolution. I resonate with the optimism, Priyanka, you've spoken about that's coming here towards this revolution. And I really hope, Rajesh and Amit, to your points, that teachers are leading this conversation of change that's happening. And maybe in the future, it'll be great to have teachers whom you all work with, whom you all service, or who are part of your organization, to come and share their perspective in such spaces and forums, and actually also lead these conversations. It's been a fantastic last 90 minutes. The chat window has been buzzing with hundreds of comments on how informative what you have shared. So just a huge thanks on behalf of the participants to all of you panelists for giving us your time, sharing your challenges, sharing how the way forward is, and basically engaging in this conversation. A huge thanks to the participants also who are with us today, both on Zoom and on Facebook Live as well. Thanks for taking this time this evening. As difficult as things are, we are also optimistic. We know that this is going to take more time, more effort. But if anything, I think there's larger empathy towards teachers and what schools do. So let's kind of, leverage that and move forward with that. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and thanks again for connecting.
Thanks, Ashwat,
Thank you.
to all the panelists and the audience for this.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Good night. Bye.
Good night.